Hello, I'm Dan Rather, and welcome to the CBS Evening News Online edition. Just ahead, why and how did American troops open fire on that car of a just-released Italian hostage? There's new information about it. We'll examine the tragic incident from both sides. Also, the return of Martha Stewart. The pictures are compelling and all carefully staged, but are or are not her stockholders buying? We'll give you the inside story. And 40 years of hurricanes. The big storms haven't changed, but how they're covered on television especially has changed. We'll give you a look back in a reporter's notebook. It's all starting now on the CBS Evening News Online edition. President Bush's coalition of the willing in Iraq is under severe strain tonight because of the Friday night shooting on the road to Baghdad's airport. There is increasingly sharp disagreement over exactly what happened and why in the dark of night. U.S. troops opened fire on a car carrying an Italian reporter who had just been freed by kidnappers. She was wounded. An Italian intelligence agent riding with her was killed. The reporter insists she was deliberately targeted. U.S. officials say definitely not. CBS's Kimberly Dozier has the latest on the investigation, which has the potential for far-reaching effects on the long-range U.S. mission in Iraq.
The only thing undisputed in this story is that Baghdad's airport road is one of the most dangerous thoroughfares in the world. Giuliana Sgrena had just been released by militants. The Italian intelligence team who picked her up drove her in a civilian car straight to Baghdad's airport in full darkness. Sgrena says there was relief and laughter. The next thing she heard was gunfire and her bodyguard, Nicola Calipari, breathing his last breath.
A tank started to shoot to us without any signal, any light. The agent that was just sitting beside me, he covered me, and when I realized that my liberator, I can say, Nicola, was dead, so it was terrible.
The Italian policeman who was driving said American soldiers ordered him out of the car, forced him to kneel with injured hands in the air, and took his cell phone. He says American officials at the airport were aware of their mission. The U.S. soldiers at the checkpoint remember it differently. They say a car sped at them out of the night, ignoring their warnings of flashing lights and shots in the air. But military officials tell CBS News that the soldiers at the checkpoint had no prior word the Italians were coming. Thinking they were under attack, the Americans fired into the car's engine block. A preliminary investigation showed the soldiers only had 3 seconds to decide. U.S. rules of engagement permit troops to use deadly force if they feel threatened. But many Iraqi officials have complained American soldiers too often fire first and check what they hit later. Giuliana Sgrena believes her car was deliberately targeted at the checkpoint by American soldiers furious that the Italian government had negotiated with terrorists. U.S. commanders say it was a tragedy caused by confusion and a split-second decision by soldiers who thought they were under attack. Kimberly Dozier, CBS News, Baghdad.
Martha Stewart returned to her business life today and will be required to wear a monitoring device on her ankle under the terms of her release from prison. Stewart is making a big splash outside, and it's no accident. CBS's Trish Regan gives you the inside story.
The curtain's now up on Act 2 of the Martha Stewart drama.
I'm really glad to be home.
And in spite of what this leading lady says,
I had so many things to say, and I wanted to kind of do it in an impromptu fashion.
It's been one of the most highly choreographed performances ever.
The truth is, the more you control the media, the safer you are.
And Martha Stewart is playing it very safe.
Or it says, Happy Holidays, Martha.
Today, she invited the media to cover what was supposed to be an intimate chat with her employees. It ended up on live cable TV. All Martha, no questions.
The message there is, I just want you to see me do what I do, that I'm crying, that I am Martha.
You know what? I am Martha Stewart.
Remember those great pictures of her leaving prison? Turns out the camera platform that made them possible was provided by Martha Stewart.
I think it's turning off some people because, in a sense, it's so canned, and it's a lot of overkill here. I mean, after all, we're not talking about, like...
To cover what was supposed to be an intimate chat with her employees. It ended up on live cable TV. All Martha, no questions.
The message there is I just want you to see me do what I do, that I'm crying, that I am Martha.
You know what? I am Martha Stewart.
Remember those great pictures of her leaving prison? Turns out the camera platform that made them possible was provided by Martha Stewart.
Over the weekend, she provided a handout tape to news organizations.
Could backfire.
I think it's turning off some people because in a sense it's so canned and it's a lot of overkill here. I mean, after all, we're not talking about like Gandhi or Mother Teresa. We're talking about Martha Stewart.
Is she being too controlling?
That's one of those things that at the end of the day you have to see. Does the share price go up or does the share price go down?
So far, it's going down. Shares in her company, Martha Stewart Living on the Media, fell again today after dropping more than 9% on Friday, showing Martha can't control everything. Trish Regan, CBS News, New York.
In more than 4 decades of reporting here at CBS, we have found ourselves more than a few times in the eye of a storm, a hurricane. It's no secret we take special pride in our CBS News hurricane coverage. Witnessing the power of nature has been both exciting and humbling.
This is, by anybody's standard, a hell of a hurricane.
There was no other way to put it. Hurricane Andrew was a hell of a hurricane. Category 5, and the third most powerful ever to hit the United States.
We've lost our homes. We've lost everything.
No one who was there will ever forget Andrew. As for me,
On the beach,
I remember every hurricane I've ever covered,
the wind doesn't get much worse than it is right here.
including the largest, Carla, in 1961.
Here is Dan Rather speaking directly from Galveston.
Our graphics were a little unpolished,
And this is a diagram roughly of the eye of the hurricane.
but that day we did something that had never been done before. Put a live radar image of a hurricane on television.
Now our camera's on the radar. Right there is the hurricane eye.
It's hard to imagine today, as we routinely air not only radar but satellite images. But that day, we agonized over whether showing our viewers what was going on would cause mass panic. Ultimately, up to 500,000 people evacuated the coast, and the storm's relatively low death toll, 46, confirmed that we'd made the right call.
People respond to their visual evidence, so when you have a big hurricane approaching, if you can show that picture on television, it prompts a much better action.
Meteorologist Neil Frank has been a constant presence in our hurricane coverage. Tell us what you think about it.
Well, you know, you and I go back a long time.
He knows firsthand the fascination and the danger of these storms.
You see that swirling cloud mass down there. It is exciting to see that, but underneath that cloud mass is death and destruction.
Oh, my God!
The raw fury, the power of these monsters is truly awesome.
This is what it looks like when the wind is gusting 144 miles an hour or above.
It's hard to breathe, it's hard to see, and of course it's hard to stand.
Darker and darker. We'll get... Whoa.
But it's the individual stories that stick with you. Take Hurricane Opal, October 1995.
This is one of the most dangerous hurricanes in years, and it's hitting right here, right now, all along the Gulf Coast.
The next day, I walked down what had been the main street in what was left of Mexico Beach, Florida.
But for example, when we look at this sort of damage here, I mean, I don't see a single house until you get way down, maybe a half mile, that even looks like it could be rebuilt.
9 years later, we tracked down former Mayor Gary Gaddis.
You knew it was bad when Dan showed up. I mean, Dan wouldn't be here unless it was one of the worst that there was.
We showed Gaddis his initial reaction to the devastation.
I don't see it coming back in 25 years at this point, not to where it was. The damage it's just unbelievable.
Gaddis was happy to report he was wrong.
Within the year, you probably wouldn't have a clue that something major happened.
Hurricanes have left their mark on land
I got it.
and on me, as when my old friend Neil Frank finally found out what was up my sleeve.
Please, I'd like to see what you have on that cup.
Well, you know, I always like to remember how I got here and where I'm from. You know? So it's just for me. I put the international weather map sign for hurricane.
I got you.
It's just for
Thank
me.
you.
Just for me. More stories are just a click away, but be sure to join me on television for the on-air edition of the CBS Evening News. On Tuesday's broadcast, Face to Face with Saddam Hussein, he gave 2 exclusive interviews to CBS News. We'll give you a hard look at the man, what makes him tick, and some of what we now know he didn't say in the interviews that he was thinking, in a reporter's notebook. For CBSNews.com, I'm Dan Rather.